Can y'all feel this? Can y'all feel this?
You're listening to episode 2 of Full Rotation, a music podcast where your hosts James and John revisit some of our favorite albums of all time, and usually one of us hasn't heard it. How are you doing, John?
Doing well.
Yeah, I think episode 1 went well.
Yeah.
I can't complain. I think we did well. A couple of ums here and there.
We should have called the episode
I know, I thought about that. I was like, maybe we should just call it and maybe play like an count as we went through it or something like that.
An could just be our intro.
Exactly. I think that works really well. I'm super excited about it. I got some feedback from some of my friends and some people, and they really loved it. So I think we're on to something good here. So I'm really excited for that. I don't know if you've got any feedback on
I had a lot
side.
of really good feedback, a couple of constructive criticisms, mostly to not be so worried about the ums.
Yeah.
I saw some ratings start to pop up in the iTunes store. That was pretty exciting.
Right. Oh, yeah. I think that's like a podcast thing. You have to say, hey, if you like what you're hearing, come to iTunes or wherever you listen to.
Please rate us.
Please rate us 5 stars. If you want to give us 3 or 2 or 1, just kind of skip on that, and that's fine. We don't really need
just
to
email us with that negative.
Yeah, you can email us at thefullrotationpodcast@gmail.com. That's a good way to get our stuff in a little early. I appreciate that. That's really, really great. I think, one thing that's people may not know is we're in Atlanta, and we just had the Super Bowl come through, which you may not know about because you're not a big sports guy.
I used to play them.
Used to play them, don't really watch them.
Don't really watch them as much.
The halftime show was a hot mess.
I heard about that. Tell me more, though.
Yeah, so, the Super Bowl committee, I guess, decided to choose a musical guest that they thought would be safe. And so they chose Maroon 5, which doesn't really make sense because Maroon 5's not from Atlanta. They don't really have any ties to Atlanta. You'd figure with the plethora of Atlanta artists, they would have chosen Outkast.
That would have been super badass.
Wasn't
Big Boy supposed to perform that?
So Big Boy did perform.
Okay.
So what happened was Maroon 5 started playing their rock songs. I know them, I've heard them, and unfortunately, even after they got off, I was whistling one of the songs because one of their poppy songs has a whistle in it. But
I like Maroon 5.
Maroon 5. Well,
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Their last album was good.
Okay, and this is why I like having us on the show because we have these varying viewpoints on music.
Yeah.
So Maroon 5 came on, and then they showed like a SpongeBob clip, which we'll get into in a second.
Yeah.
And then it showed Travis Scott. He played probably I'd say the first 30 seconds of Sicko Mode.
I heard that.
And then he ran away and disappeared.
That's politically correct of him. He's a
Yes.
smart guy.
Yeah,
Get out of Dodge.
Exactly. And then Big Boy rolled up literally in a Cadillac, wearing a big old, fur coat, looking very ATL, looking very D-boy status, and, did a couple of his songs, and then I feel like he bounced out, but not without chanting ATL ho a couple of times, and then going off the stage and letting Maroon 5 close it out. So I would say it was kind of boring. Hooray, Big Boy.
Right.
And then boring again.
Right.
The interesting part was the SpongeBob thing, which may not make any sense because it was basically when they were introing Sicko Mode, it has that really long musical intro. It's showing this clip of SpongeBob, and apparently the creator of SpongeBob passed away last year. And all these SpongeBob fans were petitioning Maroon 5 and all these people to play this one specific kind of song that SpongeBob did on a fake Super Bowl type thing on an episode. And Maroon 5 was like, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And then all they did was a little fan service, and everyone was like, that's not what we came for. So, yeah, I don't know. It wasn't that great, but, I think what we could do, we need to... We're good? Okay. Technical difficulties. Episode 2, making sure everything's going okay. We'll fix that in edit. Or maybe not.
Yeah.
Let's let it run with
Let's
it.
let it be raw.
Yeah.
I hate a pop-up.
What's that?
I hate a pop-up on the phone. It's very terrifying.
For sure. And when we're doing all this stuff, I think we should talk about how when we were setting all this up, we were like, maybe we should film this.
Yeah, that would have been a good episode in and of itself.
Right, a podcast about podcasting, which I'm sure has been done. I think that would be an interesting and kind of clever thing to do. But anyways, what do you say we jump in?
Yeah, let's do it. Real quick, speaking of Outkast, I've heard that Andre 3000 is supposed to be on Frank Ocean's newest coming album.
Really?
Very excited about that.
Interesting.
We only get an Andre verse once every, leap year.
I tell you, and it's such a a heartbreaking thing because you hear it, it's like he hasn't missed a beat, but he's like it's so effortless. It's like not even fun. I think he said it's not even fun for him anymore. You know, it's just like whatever. He's like, here, you need this. Here, I'll do that just to show you guys I'm still good.
Also, the way he makes music is really intense. Supposedly, from what I've read and heard, he suffers from a lot of social anxiety disorders. That's, a very real thing that we're more aware of now than maybe when he was growing up. And then I think, this might be an episode or a topic for another episode, but I think he does features better than he does even some of his own verses. He murders features.
I feel like we could probably go down a dark hole. I would say the Walk It Out verse is insane.
Yeah,
you hear this weird poppy song, and then all of a sudden he gets on it and kills it.
And also gives us a good lesson.
Exactly.
Well, to me, look like a nightgown. Make your mama proud. Take that thing 2 sizes down. Then you look like the man that you are, or what you could be. I can give a damn about your car, but then I would be if it was considered a classic before the drastic change in production when cars were metal instead of plastic. Value is what I'm talking about. Take 2 of these and walk it out. You'll be the reason they chalk it out. You can't be the king in the parking lot forever. Not saying I'm the best, but till they find something better, I am here.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Sure. So this episode is about Timbaland and Magoo's 1997 album, Welcome to Our World. John, it's one of your favorite albums. I admittedly did not listen to it much. I think there was a couple of radio singles on it that I'm familiar with. But why don't you kind of tell me a little bit about your thoughts about it and some things like that?
This album has a really weird place for me in my music journey. When I first discovered this album, I was still using Pandora. This was 10 years ago. And Up Jumps the Boogie came on my 3-6 Mafia radio station.
Shout out 3-6.
And I had no idea why that song came on. In my mind, I see very little comparison between this Virginia pop, like Aaliyah hooked music with 3-6 Mafia's more raw, gritty style. But Up Jumps the Boogie came on. I love the song.
This track like Pam Grier in movies. I heat up the beat like water in a jacuzzi. I fly to LA, then come back to Virginia, then call Magoo to see he's got some in there. Then back to the crib to pick up my brother G. Don't forget to bring the house keys. Hops in the 850. Now here we go. Please, brother, don't slam my car door. It costs too much money to get that shit fixed. I need all my money.
I looked up the album, had never heard of the album before. Something that's really interesting about this album is they've stopped printing physical copies, and there's very little versions of this album on the internet. The streaming services don't really have them. Yeah. There's some YouTube links that'll pop up, but then they get taken down, and they pop up again when people will stream the full album.
Right.
But it's a hard album to find. Back when I used to listen to vinyl, I had a copy of this album that I bought, randomly one day, and it was one of those serendipitous type moments. But the album itself, to me, was so melody driven, and it was so with those Timbaland beats and the Missy Elliott, and I think Magoo sounds really interesting and unique, and with the Aaliyah, it was a really good vibe album for me. I never went to the album for inspirational lyrical content. For me, even, and it's sort of out of order because the 2000 has already happened, and the melody driven, hook focused songs of the early 2000s had already come for me in my life.
Right. But
But this was one of those albums where it was like, oh, I don't really care what they're saying, but it sounds good. And so I put it on at parties. I put it on when I was taking road trips back when I was living in California. It's always I've had a lot of fond memories with it. But I was excited to hear your take on it because I don't know how to say this, but you have a lot more of a discerning, I think, ear for, I think maybe you care more about lyrics than I do. It's not that I don't care about lyrics, but I can take my lyric hat off.
Yeah.
And dive into my melody, my mood music or whatever.
Yeah, what I think is interesting is I'm what you would call a backpacker.
Yeah,
right? So you know what I'm saying? So and I self-proclaimed. So it's no offense is taken to that. One of my notes on this was look, this isn't a super lyrical album.
Not at all.
Especially when it comes to Magoo, which I'll get into in a little bit.
He says, like a diaper, I'm messy, and that's a really messy lyric.
Yeah. He has a couple of messy lyrics that even when I was doing a little bit of research on the album, some people were like, all right, that's interesting. I had a hard time trying to find it to listen to it.
Right.
Like you said, I had to search the internet, which because I'm a super old guy, I'm good with the Googles, so I was able to find it and pull it down and listen to it. And I was really, really impressed. You know, I think it was at a time when Virginia was blowing up. It's pre-Clips, it's pre-Neptunes, but they still were. It still has, in my opinion, the same kind of sound. A very clean,
The production's so clean.
It's so clean. And you know what I was thinking? This is, you know, in episode 1 we talked about Into the Stage. This was only 3 or 4 years after that, and it is.
The production quality is insane.
It is vastly different. It is so crisp and clear. And what I love about Timbaland, I saw him in a YouTube video or something when he was working with Jay-Z. Just a lot of the songs and a lot of the beats he makes it with his own mouth. You know, he basically like beatboxes it.
His sound kit is a lot of noises that he just makes.
Yeah, and it's crazy. And I think it's just such an amazing thing. And like you said, you know, you have Genuine on there, you have Missy, Timbaland, you have Aaliyah. Man, it was hard to listen to the Aaliyah songs.
Static Major was in the R&B group Playa at the time, and they're on almost every song.
Really?
And Static Major then went on to like do most of the stuff that we've heard on the radio for like the last 15 years.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a really, really solid sound. I mean, I would argue that this is really Timbaland's album, and Magoo is just kind of sprinkled around.
Magoo is an accessory on this album.
Yeah, you know, me being like kind of like a math nerd, computer dude, I did the math. Magoo didn't show up until 10 minutes into the album. I mean, so that's like the first 2 tracks.
The third song, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was the first 2 tracks are just Timbaland saying like, "Hey, this is my world. I'm going to show, like, you know, hey,
pretty much.
Maybe
just
that's why it's called Welcome to Our World."
Right. And the first intro track is really interesting because he's just talking.
I got my man Jimmy D on that engineer board, and we do this like, you know, every day, all day, 24 hours. You know what I'm saying? Making this money. I ain't got to rap. You know what I'm saying? All I can do is talk on this track, and you will still buy it.
And that's why I think it's like mood music, you know, or the predecessor to mood music.
Yeah.
And then the second one is literally just Timbaland going through like a day in his life. Like, here's my schedule.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that makes this entire album so magical and why I could see it growing in popularity is it's easy to remember to rhyme to. So like when you're with your friends, it's like, I went to the bathroom, I washed my hands. Right. You know, it's like just some simple, easy things to do like that. And, you know, I was pleasantly surprised through it. I thought I was going to listen to it and it was going to be aged. And you know how it happens sometimes. You listen to these things like, oh, this didn't really stand up well. But it's super, super solid.
You know, it went platinum.
No, I didn't know
it charted
that.
very, 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 very well, which was unusual for the time because I think Timbaland had done a couple of things for Genuine, you know, including like Pony and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, geez, that Pony song.
Super Duper Fly was from Missy Elliott, which is one of my favorite albums that had already been done, but he was still relatively unknown. Yeah. And I think from what I understand is this was really popular in the college circuit. Yeah. And then that helped it chart as well.
And that makes sense. And, you know, obviously this will age me, but like that was, you know, I think it came out in '96. I went to college in '99, so that gave it a lot of time to like really start to grow and start to balloon up a little bit.
To think about an album selling 1 million physical copies in today's time is wild.
Oh yeah, I mean the numbers today that get sold physically are super low. So I think what I can probably do now is maybe dig into some of my favorite songs.
Yeah, I want to hear that.
Yeah, so I think I kind of rank these songs as what I really, really like down to like, okay, I can dig it. The first one is actually a song that's later in the album. I think it's called Writing Rhymes. Okay. With Troy Marshall. Yeah. Man, I don't know. When I was listening to the album, a lot of it was just very, you know, like we talked about earlier, where it was just, you know, very rhythmic and very like melodic and everything. And then this song pops on.
Right.
This is how I wanna spit it. I bullshitted in the 80s. I had to get my mind up off the ladies like these worldly things. A baby beam and shiny ring. See, this is how we do things when you're fucking with the kings of the streets. New York, it's all respected, but still we keep it hectic. And places we be wrecking where we from, Timbaland. See, that's my man who understand these things. You niggas think about Cream, me and Magoo. Y'all realize we roll with crew. All respected too.
And it's just like, it sounds like almost like a New York song. Right. It was like, it was so, and I think that shows again when we talked about my, like,
your bias, what you're looking for.
Exactly. Yeah. So you had Troy Marshall, who I've never heard of before, you know, never since. I tried to look him up and see if he has any albums on his own. There's nothing really out there. I found a guy who's maybe like a music manager, so maybe he just came on this and killed it with his one verse.
And not to be cracking, but Troy Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
You mean?
Oh, is it Troy Mitchell?
Yeah, I think so.
That's
but no worries, just in case some listener out there
I
fact checks us.
And hey, fact checks, send them to the full rotation podcast at gmail.com.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyways, so you like that song?
I did like that song. I said it felt more like a Mobb Deep verse than what I've been hearing. I felt like it was a lot more the New York sound. I dug it. I feel like if I'm remembering right, there was a soul sample I think in there.
Yeah,
it was one of the few songs that actually had a sample, which I feel like is a lot different than the music I'm listening to.
And very unusual for Timbaland.
Yeah. I feel like again he always makes his own samples. For himself. The other song I really enjoyed was "Feel It."
Oh yeah, that's a really talk about some mood music right there.
Yeah, and I tell you, the way I listen to new albums, which this either makes me a madman or kind of like a genius, I'm not sure, is I always put on noise-canceling headphones and I try and listen to it when I'm laying in bed in the dark. So I have no other kind of like distractions. Exactly. And that's the second song on the album. And just hearing it, again, like how sonically solid this album was, I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. How have I never heard this?
Yeah.
I was just insanely impressed at how well it held up. It was phenomenal.
And going off that note really quickly, one of the things that, and this just popped in my head, but almost every song on this is different.
Yeah.
And so that really shows the versatility of Timbaland. I think kind of for like one of the first times in his career, like really showing how versatile he is as a producer.
I think it was his coming out album. I think it was just like, I think it was putting everyone on notice in just showing really his skill set. And it was very amazing. The next song that I really liked was the Clock Strikes remix.
Make your Gucci wet, came through the crowd, heard the brother booing, said real low, hey, what you doing? Don't you know I've been rapping on tracks since back in the days when tapes was 8-track. Relax and jump to it like Duran Duran, black as buckwheat, still get a tan. Over to your girl, hey, what's your number? You and your crew must be dumb and dumber.
Timbaland, understand, kicking the fly beats, all my fly fans, not be the piper bus.
It's the one that I think blew up the most, at least in where I went to school at Georgia Southern.
Yeah.
I mean, that song was everywhere. You can't go wrong with a Night Rider beat,
right.
You know. And what's interesting at this time is I remember that a Busta Rhymes song came out at the same time. It was the Fire It Up, I think, remix.
Yeah.
And so it was like this weird thing on the radio. You'd like hear like this like Night Rider theme playing. You're like, oh man, it's a Timbaland song. Like, oh wait, no, this is the Busta song, and vice versa. But I think it really flowed, and I think it was just such an awesome song. I know on the video, because I was watching the video this morning, Mad Skills, Virginia rapper, was on it as well.
Yeah.
He's a really big underground dude. I'm a big fan of his. He actually does a year rap song every year. Those things are always entertaining to listen to. We'll make sure to link that in the song notes.
His one from this year, or 2018, was very funny.
Yeah, he's always on point. And what's funny is like now there's like 3 or 4 other rappers who try to do the same thing, and everyone's like,
well, they're all beefing about who started the year-end wrap-up first.
Exactly. It's like Skills has been doing it for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how you could really argue with that. My last favorite one was Man Undercover.
Okay. All right.
Man, like again, I tried to avoid. Now to be clear, I tried to avoid the pop ones, the really big successful ones. So like Up Jumps the Boogie, those ones are all amazing. But like I feel like those were like. I heard those, so I didn't want to like kind of rank those in my ranking.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that's why I jumped on those.
I'm with it.
Yeah.
These are some sleepers that you picked.
Yeah, I think I've forgotten how good Aaliyah was.
Yeah.
And I think once I heard that song, I think that's the one where she was really focused on it and really like the star of it. And it's just...
You don't have to show you're the boss.
My heartstrings, and I was just like, man, Gone Too Soon. And I wrote that there. I wrote Gone Too Soon.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go into probably my least favorite songs now.
Tell me.
Not that I hated them.
It's okay.
They're all artists. You know, they're doing something I can't do. But I think we all have to be honest.
Yeah.
Clock Strikes. I hate that song.
Yeah.
This is a really sad thing. Is like I think I'm really aggravated by Magoo's voice, which is weird because I love Q-Tip. and Q-Tip has that high
pitched voice, yeah.
But Magoo, I don't know. I think it's a bit of my backpackerness. I think it's like, one, the rhymes are super simple and stupid, which is fine, and then like his voice is just high pitched. So like I think him on the chorus of Clock Strikes, it's like nails on a chalkboard for me. It's just I don't know, and you know, and then on the song Up Jumps the Boogie, I think that's the one where he's just like bird, bird, bird.
Yeah. Well, that's a Missy Elliott.
I know. It's funny, but it's just like, I don't know. It's just, something about it. Something about it irks me. I think it's my sensibilities as that backpacker lyric person. Like, that's...
You're being mad snobby right now.
Oh, I am snobby. That's like when I hear like Nicki Minaj rap about China, with China, with China, with China. I'm like, that's the laziest rapping ever.
It's not Nicki Minaj.
No, absolutely not. Shout out to Nicki Minaj. Shout out to Magoo.
We want no smoke from the bar.
No. Oh my gosh. I actually did a search to see what Magoo was up to these days.
I have no idea.
Yeah, he was on a Missy song maybe 5 years ago, and then I think Timbaland said that basically he took all his money and invested in real estate, and he's just kind of living off that.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So he's
shout out to real estate.
Yeah. I mean, that's, you know what they say is like, you know, buy land, there's not going to make any more of it.
That's true.
You could argue that the volcanoes do, but we're not a science podcast, so we don't need to dig into that.
That's a really slow build right there.
Yeah, for sure. That's a slow man's game. And then really I only had one other one, which was Joy. It's kind of towards the end of it. I think that's the one with Genuine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love Pony. Everyone loves Pony. You know, shout out to Genuine. I'm just not a Genuine fan.
Really? But you don't really get in your R&B bag like I do.
I don't, and I'm excited for you to kind of push me onto that. I'm excited for the R&B stuff because
it might be an R&B sleeper for Back to the Future.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited for that then. That's great. So yeah, for Joy, I put it's whatever. Never been a huge Genuine fan except Pony, obviously.
Yeah.
It's also one of the last songs on the album. I consider it maybe it's filler. They're like, oh, we got all these peeps on it. Let's just put them on there and everything. So I'd say all in all, if I had to give this a rating, I'd give it a 3/4 rotation. Maybe not the full rotation.
Okay.
I think I would give it kind of like the 3/4.
A 3/4 rotation. I like that.
That's
like
the new rating system. I figured we do 0, quarter, half, 3/4. So why don't you kind of tell me about your favorite songs?
For me, and see, it's interesting that you went with those kind of like sleeper songs on the album or the deep cuts, because I like the pop ones.
Yeah.
And I never had that college experience. You know, when I was in college, it was like D4L and all of the snap rap.
Yeah.
So we had none of these songs. And when I first heard Up Jumps the Boogie, it was after college. You know, I'd already moved to California at this point, and that song just for me, because it never played out too much on the radio, still has a lot of like makes me feel good, makes me want to get up and dance and shuffle around and stuff like that. And for me, there's something so iconically special about Timbaland, Aaliyah, and Missy Elliott together.
Sure. Like
even if you feel some type of way about Magoo, it's really difficult, I think, if you actually appreciate music or even just hip hop to disregard like how special the three of them were together.
100%.
Like their vibe, like that whole energy of them, like the Timbaland's production, Aaliyah's melody, and Missy's swag, like just straight up swag.
Yeah.
And I think way back when, in some random interview, Lil Wayne said that Missy Elliott was his favorite rapper when he was growing up. And when I first heard that, because of like the music that I grew up listening to, which was a lot not spending as much time with female rappers, you know, that was weird to me. And then I went back and listened to some of her stuff, and she really, her flow, even, you know, again, if you are able to put aside like needing bars or like New York style lyricism, her flow is almost unparalleled. And I think that you see a lot of Magoo doing things that Missy Elliott did, and maybe vice versa. And I think for me that Magoo's voice is high pitched, but that's never bothered me. Lil Wayne was one of my favorite rappers, you know, so I've never minded the high pitched thing. And I think it kind of added to his style. But so Up Jumps the Boogie for sure was one of my favorites. Love to Love You remix.
Yeah.
That's a really, really, really like sexy song.
It's a classic
man with the power. I get booty calls 15 after every hour. So don't try to take it personal. I gotta get the cash. Now you got to go. Love to love to love ya, love ya, love ya. Remix. Love to love to love ya, love ya, love ya. Like that. Love to love to love ya, love ya, love ya.
Love to love to love ya. That part where like Tim was ooh.
Yeah.
I mean it's just it's that song is classic. That's just a classic song.
I don't even need to be hearing it, but that song can pop in my head, and I start feeling some type of way.
For sure.
That song is interesting with this album, and that for me are the two that I think that I'm gonna like really definitively say are my favorite. I also really love Feel It. I like the intro just because he does the Missy Elliott, who's got the keys to the beat, drop, and I think that was like some subtext, like braggadocious kind of thing, because that song was so huge,
right?
And his career was kind of still just starting out, but he came out the gate really hot. But for me, those two songs, Up Jump the Boogie and Love to Love You Remix, are songs that if you had to make me choose two, those are the two that I would choose forever. But that brings me into my least favorite. And the thing about my least favorites is, and right off the bat, Clock Strikes for sure it was first on my list. I don't care about your day, Timbaland.
It's
or Magoo. Like I don't care. Like I don't care about your. Like, I don't need your day planner.
It's a tough song, man. It's just
the beat is great.
I heard the beat and I was like, all right. And then Magoo starts rapping. I don't even dig into that anymore. And then the chorus, man. I will dig into that again.
Tomorrow, you be saying, when can we meet? My office hours are 9 to 5. Ain't that right? Make a new.
When the clock strikes 2:30, yeah, they'll be dancing through the night. Da 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 da. Da 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 da.
That is almost akin to someone telling Nas he can sing on the chorus. It's like, you know what? You can't. Now, what if Aaliyah would have sung that chorus?
It would have been better.
You know what I'm saying?
But Aaliyah can sing anything in my mind.
For sure. Even Missy. Like, if anyone else but Magoo could have sung.
Yeah. And when I talked to people about this was the album that we were gonna do, a lot of people had like a weird, funny face about Magoo.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that's hard about this album. Maybe the fact that it's out of print and not on streaming services didn't help it age well. And this is why I chose it, because I think it should have aged better than it did. This album.
For sure.
But Magoo just, maybe because of a lack of follow through in his career, or maybe just because of how simple his rhymes were, mixed with the high pitched voice.
Yeah.
You had to want to like him.
Yeah. Can we be honest about something?
What's that?
The name could have been different.
Magoo?
Magoo. I mean,
I'm not beefing with him on Magoo. There's mad silly names out here.
There is, but like I feel like 2 Chainz was like, you know what, Teddy Boy ain't gonna work.
He did.
So I'm gonna figure something out. And there's a couple other ones I can't remember off the top of my head, but like at some point you need to be like, is this name really gonna work?
I don't remember where he's from, but there's like a southern rapper named Big Pooh, and I always thought that was a weird.
Oh, Big Pooh, that's Little Brother.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to dive into them if you haven't heard their albums.
All right, but all of so there's a Love to Love You remix, and then there's the original version of Love to Love You. I don't like the original version of Love to Love You. Right.
I was gonna put on here about Love to Love You remix was like, this is just one of those things where the remix is so much better. Sometimes it's like remix is like, oh, we'll just throw another person on it and call it a remix, but this was like a completely different song. They could have named it something different. Really.
Yeah.
They should have named Love to Love You a different song and left this as Love.
Or just deleted it.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about this album. I skipped Love to Love You, the original one. I definitely don't bother listening to the last track on the album, which is the original Up Jumps the Boogie.
Yo, yeah, I got you sweating. Timbaland, my man, my man, beep beep in the caravan. There go my man. Magoo, what you got plans for pulling down your pants on Magoo? No dag, why you tripping like that? Is you pissed? I make a list of those who tried to be me, cause my style sickening. Yeah, and my phone's ringing. Gone.
I think I was listening to that, and I think I was kind of like already was like, all right, this song's over, because for me, like I said, Joy wasn't a big hit for me anyway, so I was already losing interest. I think I started to actually like to get up and do some other things, and I thought that was like just like an outro. Yeah, it was very skippable.
And Clock Strikes, I always skip that.
Yeah,
I can't have this on iTunes or Spotify because it's not there. But if it was, if I saved it in my library, I would delete those 3 songs, and I feel like the album would be a lot better.
Yeah.
But overall, though, I really, for a lot of nostalgic reasons and just general because of where I think in like the hip hop family tree this album was, as far as like being sort of like pioneering to that shift in sound.
Yeah.
I think that it is really, really, really undervalued and underrepresented, and the importance of hip hop.
I agree. I think this was one of those albums that was ushering in the pop rap era.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where Black Moon, Into the Stage, you know, Wu-Tang, Into the Wu-Tang, all those ones are so hard to play on the radio and have people listen to it. But again, these songs, they're not very confrontational. They're very easy to kind of vibe with because the production's amazing. So yeah.
Sonically, they make you want to party and get up and dance and feel good.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's, and what's interesting to me is that, to bring up Outkast for a third time, Outkast at this point in time, you know, 97, was doing that melody, but also having the lyrical thing.
Yeah.
I think they saw a lot. Their albums have all aged a lot more, you know, mainstream than this album did.
For sure.
But if this album, maybe if he had been with a different rapper, you know, if he could have somehow already been affiliated with like the Clips, or maybe just have Missy Elliott do it, I would have been stoked for that. Yeah.
But I think, you know, and to give Magoo his due, like I think him and Timbaland together flow well. Like I mean, especially on the banger songs, like, you know, Love to Love You and those things. There's definitely, I remember being younger and loving his lyrics at the time. I think as I've grown older and as I've listened to a lot more rap and stuff like that, and I was like, not really necessary.
Do you have any final wrap ups on this album?
No, I think it was great. I was glad I got to finally experience it. It's so funny how there's albums that we don't really think about listening because maybe at the time you're like, you just brush it aside, and then when you go back and listen to it, like, wow, I really missed out. And that's why I'm glad we're doing this podcast, to be honest. So just shout out to us again.
Well, and you know, it's neat too because I don't want us to choose the easy, obvious albums. Right. You know, I think we both can agree that Equipment is one of the greatest albums of all time. It's also super well known. I actually stopped this when I was listening through probably the third or fourth time because I think I heard a song and I was like, I want to listen to what's going on now. Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it would not make sense for us to talk about.
Yeah, and so I think it's good to try to dig up these old ones, especially the stuff that's like out of print.
Yeah.
You know, hard to find.
Absolutely.
That kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Should we do some Back to the Futures?
I'm ready to go Back to the Future.
All right, you first.
Me first? Okay. This one's very near and dear to my heart. A group called People Under the Stairs.
Okay.
Released their final and 12th album last Friday, which was February 1st or 2nd, I believe, of 2019. You got to keep it evergreen. So when people are listening to this in 2019, they know when it came out. It's called Sincerely the P. It's a culmination of all their stuff. You know, these guys are older now. They've been doing it for 20 years. I think I read an interview about them saying, you know, we can't really rap about like partying and stuff like that. It's like we've done that. And you know, the song I chose off of the album is called Reach Out.
Vocal sharp, they cut through eternity. Charlie Wilson, you burning rubber on me? Best question in hip hop, yo, whatever, G. I'm about to put away the better me. Reaching ghettos of your mind. Finally we reach and move the crowd steadily.
Reach out forever. Let's reach out together.
Forever, ever.
Let's reach out forever.
I think it's just a beautifully authentic People Under the Stairs sound. I didn't want to choose some of the other ones that I think are better because I want people to go listen to the album. But that's my pick, and it's an amazing album, and I hope we get to cover one of those albums in the future.
Awesome. I mean, we'll have to. To be honest, full transparency, I listened to very little People Under the Stairs, so I want to link.
Awesome.
For me, my Back to the Future song, a local Atlanta artist. I believe you say her name UMI, all capital letters.
Okay.
And she's R&B. I think somewhere in East Atlanta, but maybe I'm confusing that because there's a lot of great R&B in Atlanta right now. The song's called Lullaby.
Okay.
There's a rapper that I'm not 100% sure where he's from. Yeek is his name though, but he has a really nice flow on that as well. It's kind of like R&B rapping, sort of like Black does. But the production on it's very, very high quality. You know, all the things I really care about, melody, sonically pleasing, vibes, all that's there. And I actually like the lyrics too.
Nice.
When you listen to the song, I won't give too much away, but you kind of go on the story with her and you think that the story is going to end a certain way and then it doesn't.
You let
artists do that.
For sure.
Catch you off guard.
Yeah, that reminds me of the song by Common. I think it was called Queen Bee or something.
Right,
like that.
right.
There's one that kind of is M. Night Shyamalan type ending. That's great. Well, I think we go ahead and wrap it up. I hope everyone at home enjoyed this episode. If you would love to give us feedback, we'd love to hear it at fullrotationpodcast@gmail.com. I believe that's the right one. I think
so.
I keep saying the
Email that and see what happens.
We'll see what happens. It's either fullrotationpodcast@gmail.com or the Full Rotation.
We do have a website.
And we have
it's
a website.
that at gmail.com, right?
It's fullrotationpodcast@gmail.com. Our website is thefullrotation.com. Our social is twitter.com/thefullrotation and instagram.com/thefullrotation. I feel like such a social media
Well, you gotta get the shout outs.
I do. You gotta,
it's a digital age.
Yeah. So, well, John, this was great. I had a great time, and I will talk to you soon.
Good one.
Yep.